Thank you for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. You're watching Cracking the Codependency Code with relationship coaches Janie Terrazas and Barry Selby.
This is a series that Barry and I have been toying with for quite some time now.
Just a little bit, yes.
Just a tad. And we met several years ago through social media. He's also obviously in the same field as I am when it comes to relationship coaching, and he's very mindful and a very conscious person. And so it felt right for us to do something together, and it was just a matter of time before we figured out what it was. And since we both have fallen into codependency patterns,
just a few.
And we're going to kind of talk about that. It's something that we personally have had to overcome and address and heal and rise above and all these things. And it shows up in a lot of different ways.
And being a coach in the area of relationships, primarily working with single people, although my work is now becoming self-relationship centric, one of the common threads that happens for many of us, and I've lived through many, so I can definitely explain them a lot, is the trap of codependency. Because it's a prevalent condition, I'll use that word, that we all live under. It's the way the world teaches us to live, to relate, to connect, to love even. It's through the lens of codependency. So together, our invitation for you is for you to really watch, learn, and understand how we have learned to get through codependency and how we can show you the tools, tips, and techniques, that's the 3 T's, to break that code once and for all for yourself.
They're all ways in which you can mindfully address this behavior.
And it's not just crack the code, but resolve it so you don't need to do it anymore. Because frankly, the whole point of codependency in this conversation is how do you figure out what it is so you don't have to do it anymore.
Exactly. And the real way to truly crack the code from every level that you need to, so that it doesn't keep creeping back in again and again, is to know where it really stems from, how it can show up, because it shows up in a variety of ways. And in this series, we wanted to touch on each individual thing that could come up, because many of us are in the same boat, and a lot of times we feel ashamed. Some of us don't even really know what codependency is. You know, they hear that word and they automatically assume, at least you can chime in on this. A lot of times women or men, when you hear that, it's like, oh, I'm really needy and I depend on you for my needs, like money, or like food or like survival needs. And it's not just that. There's validation and approval and things that we're seeking outside of ourselves because of maybe something that happened early on in our younger years. And you can touch on this a little bit, Barry. Between 0 and 7, there's a lot of things that are happening inside of a child, particularly neurological wiring and patterns. This is shaping our behaviors, our instinctual motivations, our impulses, our programming that we take on. In a lot of cases, are protective mechanisms, because maybe you grew up in a home where you were not seen, you were not heard, you were not felt, you were not understood. And if you don't feel that from at least one solid caretaker, that's going to cause psychological, emotional damage.
Yes, and.
So
let me use this example. So imagine when you get your first brand new smartphone. It's an iPhone or Android, whatever it is. You're going to get some basic apps that are on that phone that'll basically have the phone function. And then as time goes by, you realize you want to get some apps. You go to the App Store or the App Market and download apps to make your phone more personalized, more functional, more effective. We're basically the same thing when we're kids. When we're born, we have certain instinctual programs, apps built in. Breathing, heartbeat, learning how to eat, learning how to go to the bathroom, stuff like that. But the thing is, for the first, 6-7 years of our life, we don't actually have all the skills. So we're almost like we're in the App Store every single day taking things in, which is basically what our parents teach us by example more than anything else, about how we should relate to other people. How do we love? How do we express? How do we connect? How do we get what we want? Why we don't get what we want? Now, I want to get into the whole conversation about abuse and neglect and everything else, but those things that happen to us when we're 7 and younger are the corruption of our natural apps inside, the corruption of our natural way of loving that cause us to be dysfunctional when we go into adult relationships. So there's a direct correlation between 0 to 7 adult relationships. So when say to ladies, you may be dating your father, it's because you may have programming from when you were a kid by your father that overrides your natural choices, and you actually choose partners that match that pattern you have with your father.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why it's so important to really know thyself. That I take that very seriously. That's like one of my mottos, because you have to know thyself before you can truly love thyself. And to know thyself is to understand one's underlying makeup.
Yep.
And we are multifaceted beings, and there's a lot that's going on subconsciously, like what he was discussing, that we are unaware of. And until we shine a light on it, we really can't do anything about it. What you don't know until you do, and then you have a choice. And Barry and I are just a couple of the human beings on this planet that are choosing to live deliberately and intentionally and authentically, and that goes against the grain of the world.
Slightly, yes. And also, and by the way, we're doing that as a daily practice, not a 100% automatic pilot, because we're not perfect. We keep making mistakes, so to speak. But the key thing is, mistakes are only mistakes if you don't learn from them. And so the lesson is, okay, if you make a mistake in relating, or a connection you have with a phone call or somebody you talk to, or an email you send, or a post on Facebook where you had something that upset somebody else, if that's something where you go, that shouldn't have done that, rather than go, oh damn, oh damn, oh damn, and blame yourself, it's like, okay, so what can I do differently from that next time so I don't do the same thing again?
Yes, because it's all about being comfortable with the little hiccups and the missteps and the mishaps, and they'll just keep happening as long as we're blind. And so we're talking about removing the blinders, and that's a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, because then what it does is it starts to put you in a position to take accountability and responsibility. What happened between 0 and 7 is not necessarily your fault, and all the cultural and maybe even religious and societal programming that we've all taken on, it's not just our immediate family. So there's a lot of stuff that has shaped our point of view and how we feel and see things, how we even see ourselves. So sometimes there's parts of ourselves that are unrevealed, and when you reveal them, you start to look at your past, and you start to see, oh, these are some choices that I made based on my trauma self, so I don't have to feel like a victim and so helpless anymore. This is why I was attracting these kinds of situations or these people, because there's a part of me inside that's looking to heal it. And so you'll keep facing it until you face like head on. That's why to achieve authenticity, you need to be comfortable with vulnerability and humility. And you must be willing to see some parts of yourself that were slightly foolish. And maybe even you go back, like when I went back and looked at some of my stuff, it's like, ouch. And that takes time too to process and heal. So we're going to touch on a lot of different things that codependents fall into, like you said, and we're going to give you tips, techniques, and tools, the 3 T's, today, Junior. Billy Madison is one of my favorite movies, and he says that. Well, today we started this, and I'm looking forward to rolling out the rest of the series, just telling a little bit about, again, just reiterate what they can expect from it, and then how they can get in contact with you. You've done a series of videos that you have on YouTube, and you have blogs, and you have books. So let them know how they can get in contact with you and what they can expect.
Okay.
Again, please.
So let me start with what you can expect.
Start there.
You can expect that we're going to have some fun talking about this and sharing our own personal war stories, so to speak, but also within that is the teaching. The reality is that we have opportunities every day to learn how to live life more successfully, more authentically, more carefully, more lovingly, and with more love for ourselves. The biggest challenge that I think most of us face is a lack of self-love. And as Janie said, this self-love comes after knowing ourselves. But in some ways, for me, they're intermixed, because as you get to know yourself, you start to love yourself more, which I think is probably more accurate.
I like that better.
The journey to self-love begins with becoming honestly aware of yourself. Now, for many of us, and I was there for a long time, I never look at myself in the mirror that way. I look at myself on the external surface to be presentable to the world, and don't look behind the curtain. Like, stay safe. That was the kind of the way life is. For most of us, we were programmed that way. I was lucky enough in my mid-20s to discover some seminars and teachings that showed me the mirror in a way I'd never seen myself before. It was heartbreaking, heart-freeing, liberating, and challenging all at once. So what I'm offering to you from my perspective, and our Janie's too, is bringing our combined experiences of what we've learned over the years what didn't work and what did work, with some war stories, as I said, to help you really navigate this world of relationship with yourself and with other people, both romantic and non-romantic, to be more effective, more functional, and more authentic in all your connections. The second part you said was about where you can find me. So my name is Barry Selby, as mentioned at the beginning, and my website is my name, so barryselby.com. And on social media for YouTube, it's Barry Selby, Facebook, etc., it's all Barry Selby. I do have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, which is there's a playlist called Messages from the Masculine with 1,000 Facebook Lives stored there. And I've got a bunch of other videos out there too. And if you go to my website, my book is there, my coaching programs, and a bunch of other stuff. So check me out.
Yes, and you can go to my website, JanieTerrazas.com. My goal as a mindfulness coach is to help those that are seeking to live a more balanced, mindful, love-filled life. And they're all interconnected. And we mentioned, knowing thyself and loving thyself. So if you go to my website, I have a free PDF. You just enter your email. I'm not going to spam you. And it's called the Know Thyself Jumpstarter Kit. And it has like 9 things that every human being should know about themselves. And there is a test on there for codependency, so you can check that out. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what it is that Barry and I create with this series that I feel is going to resonate with a lot of people. And right now the world needs more love and more kindness and compassion. And that's ultimately what this is about. The journey is about self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-accountability, as self-love, so that we can illuminate ourselves, and live from a place of peace and abundance and joy. Thanks again for watching Cracking the Codependency Code. Be sure to tune in for more episodes on how you can crack the code.
Be sure to like and follow Rise Above TV for more mindful content.